Welcome to Africa. Welcome to Djuma Game Reserve and welcome to our afternoon safari. My name is Mark. I have them on camera with. Oh, we're lucky to have buff. The Djuma waterhole and making their way back towards Treehouse Dam. Now, these are some of the boys that we saw being chased out of the dam this morning by another group of 9, I think it was, that came in. So I'm pretty sure they're the same guys. I think that they're also heading back towards Treehouse. Elephant, lovely hot afternoon. Means that elephant are going, and that some have already been. I just hope they decide that they need to do some more. Oh, I found a flower just to start this drive. I forget. I saw it and I was going to mention it. We can't see it too well. Can you see it down there? Yeah? That is the devil's claw. Oops. Where? Oh, there we go. There we go. Piece of grass in the way. Stunning flower. Has quite an intriguing seed pod. Its cousin, the devil's thorn, has a flat thorn with 2 protruding, very sharp thorns that get stuck to the hooves of animals. Let's see if I can find it. I was looking for it just before we opened. I suppose index would be best. There we go. See if I can get that. A better picture of the flower. Or rather, not a better picture, it's another picture. This is a painting by Anita Fabian. This is one of her books. But look at the seed. The seed is a really incredible piece of nature's architecture. So, there we go. The devil's claw. For the ladies. We're going to be wandering around for the next few hours, hopefully finding some animals. If some of you are new viewers, this is what we do twice a day. Wandering around in a specially modified very special vehicle that roves around the land. Oh, what was that? It was like sand, unless it was maybe thrown up by the tire. Imagine what it could have been. Buffalo thorn. Maybe it was just sand being thrown by the tire. Very strange. Oh, my cat even. I wonder if there was anything down at Djuma Water camera today. And has anybody seen the baby hippo at Arathusa Dam, on the camp at Arathusa Dam? Now, along with these drives, we're able to communicate to the world, to all of you out there, the viewers. It is what helps to keep the drive rolling and keep subjects flowing. There's a parrot I heard. Starting, pretending to be a parrot. So questions can be emailed to Alex in Final Control. Questions at Final Control. Simple. Final Control. No, sorry. What am I talking about? That was 5 years ago. Wild Earth. We are Wild Earth. Final Control is our broadcast center where Alex monitors the drives and the waterhole cameras and passes on questions to me. The questions at WildEarthTV, Wild Earth, one word. And this is our Wild Earth that we're in now. Or also there's Twitter. And that thread is under hashtag Safari Live. Hashtag Safari Live. There are a lot of comments and many things that come through, and Alex often has to filter through them to find the questions. Amongst the other things that he has to monitor. There's some little cumulus cloud building up. This one's already flattened. This one was a lot higher than it is now. It was pushing probably up to about 30,000 feet because it started getting an ice cap on it. There's another one behind it that's building up in its place that we can watch over time. We'll see it when we get towards Twin Dam. We're going to go that way. We're going to get to Junction and I'll decide whether to go straight or to go right. That's the next junction. Straight or right. See which way a bird's flying. We have just as much chance in one way as any other way, but it would be nice to wander past some of the waterholes because it's a hot afternoon, likely to be some animals wallowing. I wonder, there should be hyenas wallowing, maybe even in these mud wallows. There also mud wallows under old hyena den. Perhaps if we get there before it's too dark, we might see them. We have to establish whether they're still there or not. I think at this waterhole, this is a place called Chelapan, named after the frogs that will be here. I guess when we start getting some good rains, at the moment a lot of the waterholes are starting to get very hot. algae starts forming. You get some of these, sometimes you get algae blooms in some of these little ponds, and it depletes the oxygen in the water, which of course can be hazardous to the aquatic life that elephant been that way. We might have to go back that way, because that means he's gone on to Torchwood, or seems we lost just our sound for a bit. And whatever it was I was talking about, oxpeckers. Often when you oxpeckers, like that noise is heard. I don't know if it would have come over the mic, but they seem to be across the riverbed. There's a fairly large animal, because there are a bunch of them. The giant elephant has been drawing in the sand with his trunk.
Hello everyone. Being out in the bush and being out there live has its technical challenges. We're experiencing some of that now and are working on it as fast as possible to get it sorted and get you back on the vehicle with us.
Well, I don't know if you can see it very well, because I'm in the way. But that snake-like mark in the road is seem to lose sound. It was the first sign of our toy is overheating on the bus, on the vehicle. Hello gentlemen. So what we want to do is we want to find a place to stop in the shade. I've suggested we go to Treehouse Dam. We stop in the shade so that we can open up the back of the vehicle and let the amplifier air out a little bit. It's several degrees cooler in the shade, and there is a bit of a breeze. And the good news is that this bachelor group of kudu bulls, the magnificent kudu bulls, and these impala are possibly going to be heading up towards the dam. So they're in the drainage line, they're not far from the dam, they're on their way there. I'm sure they're thirsty. I'm hoping that they're going to come and drink. So I think let's go and find a spot up there and turn around it up in the shade and face the dam Who knows what we might see? Who knows what might be there too? Hello boys. I thought it's about high 90s, maybe 96 or something. Temperature wise in Fahrenheit. Of course, the requisite bus for the marauders. Interesting. Go up a little step. I have to get out, so I don't want to be too close because I don't want to I suppose because it's quite heavy at the back. Sorry. Trying to get reversed into some shade here, but it's just not working for me. Maybe we can try further back. I'm going to see it from this shade. Also, it seems to be working fine, even though we've been in the sun. I'm not going to see much from here. There's a few people wondering what it is that I showed you when there was a sort of a groove in the sand. There's actually a breeding herd coming in. There's a cow with a very small calf there. We're just going to have to stop in the sun for a little bit. Sorry about that. That was a little ambitious trying to climb up there with the back of the vehicle. I thought it was a lot lower. And I scattered a few of the buffalo. Interesting that there's a very small family group. That just went over the dam wall. I wonder if even those buffalo that we saw when we were opening up, I wonder if some of them have already arrived here. Alright, let's move a little bit. This is not really that good. We're going to actually try and go to a different position, or perhaps carry on driving. I think at the moment it's probably better to carry on driving because we've got a bit of a breeze blowing, and probably going to make it a bit better just with a bit of a breeze. We'll see how it goes. The groove in the sand that I showed you was a big elephant bull that had been walking on that road. Maybe actually we should follow those tracks. I think that might be an idea. We'll go back and follow those. It was a big elephant bull that had been dragging his trunk across the road, along the road as he walked. Now, possibly just the outer tip of his trunk rather than sort of the part that he uses to feed himself. But he's also probably trying to pick up the scent in the sand of any females that might be coming into estrus or something. Could be. Could possibly be. There was maybe a larger herd here than just these four, or whether they're somehow lagging. Looks like there's one cow with a fairly young calf. They're very shy. Two older calves. So I wonder if it isn't because she just going through there with a kudu moved. That's a nice shot, nicely framed there with that kudu. How does that look? A little bit back. There she goes with the calf. Young bull and a slightly older cow. Very, very shy, running off to the south. Kudu just sort of wondering what's going on. A magically shaped tree, that bush willow, growing like that because it was pushed over a couple of times in its lifetime for elephant to get its roots, and still grows, changes the shape of the tree over the years. I guess I'm not going to drink just yet. Let's go back to those elephant tracks. Maybe something will come of them. Sometimes they just drag their trunk because it's heavy and they just relax all the muscles. Especially when they're dozing under a tree, you'll see that the trunk just relaxes completely on the ground and the tip rests like a soft rubber hose. So I think we'll go past those pans on Nyala Road, and then there might be something there, and that's possibly where this elephant went, following the drainage line all the way to Buffalo Dam. so we'll do the same. I think it's the most logical thing to do on a hot afternoon. The drainage lines have a much better tree canopy. It's a completely different vegetation that grows in the rough area and it's a little bit cooler down there, so let's see if there's some along the drainage line to Arathusa Dam. We can wander around many drainage lines as we can have signal with until the temperatures drop and things start coming out into the open. So I don't think sitting is going to be an option. As soon as we seem to stop, I think that's when the heat builds up. With us moving, I think the air movement is probably the best. So it gives us a chance to cover some ground, maybe stop for things every now and then. But if we stop for too long, things get a little bit too hot and some things shut down automatically. It's like your telephone, well it's not a telephone, but your smartphone these days have got built-in temperature shut-off systems. My iPhone often has to do that because of the temperatures I live in. You know what would happen if I was in an emergency and I looked at my phone and said, and it had the temperature warning on it. And that's in the shade. Metal objects and things that are conductive just absorb heat in this kind of weather. This is clearly a very high pressure system that's moving through. We can see it's evident with these beautiful clouds that are building up. I hope it's going to be because it's building up to some rain at some point. Often a temperature spike of some sort means that we might be getting some rain. The temperatures the temperature changes that we're seeing are not great for game viewing, and we will notice. Constantly causing animals to adjust to the temperature changes, where it's sort of a constant warm or a constant cold, and things have to get on with things with their life. But when it's really, even the jasmine flowers, they're just drooping. And that's the shutting down, waiting for the rains to come. So we've had a few days ago, and find a place where there's a nice sort of background, where there's a little bit of a breeze blowing. I think it should be fairly low down, like in one of the riverbeds, or down here in the shade next to this leadwood. We need a bit of a view at least, I'm sure. Maybe next to the mud pans up here on Nyala Road. Jim and I are just discussing a method, maybe trying to keep it cool for the first hour of drive. We're going to be working on different theories and trying our best to ensure that we can do that. There's something there, unless it's just that tree moving on its own because of the air movement and aerodynamics of the leaf or leaves. Now A few summers ago there used to be a hyena den down in this drainage line, and at this time of the day, on a really, really hot day, the whole clan would be mud wallowing. The whole hyena clan would be lying in the water up to their chins. Makes me wonder where they would go, the clan up at the den, if they're still at that den. There used to be like a little wallow just behind the den in the drainage line. I think Sed found them there one day. Okay, let's see if we can maybe... That fan over there might be an idea. There have also been a few tortoises moving about today. That's another very strong indicator of a change in atmospheric pressure, big enough or extreme enough to set certain things in motion. And one of those things is
Are we live?
Are we?
Yep.
I didn't hear that. Rattling on now. Talking about how we're going to be able to do things, but I think what we're going to have to do is just sit for a while. What we've done is we've opened up the back, and it's fun doing what we do because of all these things that we have to adjust to. That's the right word. We have to adjust to the anomalies of broadcasting from this Land Rover in the middle of the African bushveld on a very hot day with clouds building up. And it's one of those things. And we have equipment that should be in an air-conditioned room, and here it is out in the sun in Africa. So we are subject to high temperatures, low temperatures, rain, fortunately no snow. So we're going to sit for a while, and what we'll do is we'll do like a question and answer type of thing. I don't know if you have any questions. Maybe there's some questions that have come through, but if you don't, do think of something that I can tell you about Africa. If you have any queries, if there's anything you want to know, and any subject, as long as it's nature. Yes. That's a very interesting question, Kay. Thanks for the question. Kay is saying, since we see hyena tracks very often, why do we hardly ever see them? I think mostly the main reason, Kay, is because we end our drives at 7 in the evening, and it's probably about the time that they're only starting to wake up and they're only starting to become active. There are times when hyena are active during the day. I've seen them hunting during the day in East Africa. I've seen them, as I said earlier, wallowing in mud wallows during the day. So they are sometimes active during the day, but I guess we'd have to be lucky. Maybe one of these mornings when we start up, we can start up close to the den and we might see them getting ready to bed down for the day. But generally speaking, they are nocturnal. They're predominantly active at night. Wouldn't say they're entirely nocturnal, but being predominantly active at night. Well, in this area, if you went up to the Masai Mara or the Serengeti or even places like Selous Game Reserve, you'll find that there are hyena that might be active during the day, any day of the week, because animal behavior is different. It requires a different dynamic because the terrain and everything else is different. But for the Sabi Sands and here in Kruger, for this part of Kruger at least, I can only speak for this particular part of Kruger, hyenas tend to be more active at night. And I think it's probably got a lot to do with the density of other predators and what their lives are about. Well, they are scavengers, but they are also hunters, and in some places actually predominantly hunters as opposed to scavengers. I do need to move because either that or I must put sunglasses on or cover my eyes with my hat, because I've got the sun in my eyes now and I want to sneeze. going to see if we can maybe just go back a little bit into some better shade, just a few inches. A little bit better. Still quite bright coming through the trees. I've always had eyes pretty sensitive to light. We're just going to sit for a little while. I think we'll just sit for a few minutes, and then I do want to get to Buffelshoek Dam. There are a lot of tracks here heading that way. But Alex was out earlier today. He needed to do a bit of driving around. He needed to see some of the roads, get a little bit more familiar with the roads, because he's going to be doing a drive tomorrow. And of course it's a lot easier once you've driven some of the roads. But he was at Buffelshoek Dam. He said the herd of ellies that we saw this morning with those two little ones, and that little boy, that naughty little boy that we saw at first, says they were at the dam when he got there, and that little boy was being naughty and was reprimanded by one of the cows, and then he proceeded to sulk. When they all moved off, he sulked in the water for a couple of minutes. Using energy, if you look at all of the predators really, even cheetah for that matter, and cheetah are predominantly diurnal hunters, daytime hunters, even wild dog, no matter who they are, predators need to remain pretty take a low profile in the heat like this. Most predators have to conserve all their energy for the hunt, because not every hunt is successful, and so energy needs to be stored or retained so that they can try again. And it's unless the opportunity arises and it's almost a sure thing that they can make a kill, unless that happens, they're likely to even just watch animals walk by, because the energy to make a burst of speed and to get out there and hunt something in this heat would be very taxing on the body. Sorry, artist, I'm going to get out a second. If I can. It's locked me in. I think I need to work on this door with some tools. It's hanging a bit low, so it's not opening properly. Excuse me a moment, just one moment. You can follow me if you want. I'm going that side. Orchid the other day that I've never seen before, and it seems not many other people have seen it either. Could be sort of a 1 in 50 year flowering of this thing. But the small knobwood, also known as citrus bush, has got a very similar leaf, and it's got, sorry, I keep forgetting to put my ear in, plug my ear in. When you crush the leaf, it's got a very strong citrus smell to it, and it does attract the citrus swallowtail butterfly as a larval host plant. And that's the interesting part of the whole life cycle of the citrus bush or small knobwood, is the fact that it has the larva of the citrus swallowtail, and that is a very interesting little thing. Just going to get back into my seat. And go home. No, missed that whole thing. There's another very good question. Marjo in the Netherlands. Hello Marjo. I did have a look at your flowers, by the way, and I've got names for a few of them. Some I'll have to look up, some I can't remember. I know that you've got your, I think the first one is a wild pear. There's impatience, you've got some bougainvillea, you've got anyways, I'll go onto Facebook and I'll address that. But the question from Marjo, actually, turn volumes down. Question from Marjo is actually about elephant, and I was talking about the tooth replacement in elephant. We had a question whether elephant have baby and adult teeth, and well, elephants go through 6 sets of teeth in a lifetime. It's the molars, and Marjo was asking if I've ever found any teeth over the years. And Marja, you actually wouldn't find any of the teeth as a whole tooth. If you knew what you were looking for, you would maybe be able to find tiny little fragments, because tooth replacement in an elephant is not vertical as it is with most other mammals, where you have a tooth falling out and from the jaw where the tooth fell out, a new tooth grows up. And then of course those are animals that only have 2 sets of teeth, and then those adult teeth are set there for life. If they lose them for some reason, which not many animals do, although some animals do develop abscesses, and I can get to that later, but we're on elephants now. We don't want to digress too much. But elephant tooth replacement is horizontal, and each set of molars is slightly bigger than the next, which stands to reason, because as the elephant ages, the jaw gets bigger and bigger, so it needs a bigger set of molars to accommodate the jaw, because the tooth itself doesn't really grow very much. And letting this air flow over the equipment will maybe make the difference. Very slowly, so that I can have a look at the camera more than the road. Just shout road if I start going off road. As I was saying before, I was unceremoniously cut off from the rest of the world. With elephant teeth, the bud of the tooth starts growing in the back of the jaw, and as the elephant ages, and as the elephant eats its daily requirement of vegetation, which tends to be very rough plant material,
Hello everyone. Being out in the bush and being out there live.
coming back to us live, and we are at Arathusa Dam. So you see, when an elephant is about a few weeks old, its first set of molars, a very small set, come in, and then from about 3, the second set of molars becomes fully operational. Now what happens is, as it is chewing and feeding on vegetation, the molar is wearing down, but it is also moving towards the front of the jaw, because the next set of molars that has budded in the back of the jaw, I mean deep in the back of the jawbone, is starting to swell and starting to grow until it is full size. And then as it grows and it moves forward, so it pushes that old molar set to the front of the jaw, where it fragments and it either gets spat out, and sometimes even you might find that I've been told that fragments might even be swallowed by the elephant. But I've been through elephant dung many years, long time. So I've never really found any fragments of elephant tooth in elephant dung. But I have no doubt that those, and it must be very small fragments, because it's probably a very slow process. And I've seen elephant jawbones, sadly, from places where the poaching has been very excessive. I've seen jawbones where you can actually see the previous set of molars starting to become fragmented and breaking up in the front of the jaw. And then you'll get some, as they grow older, you'll even have the next set in full play and the wear starting on the top of the molars, and then you can also see the next set of molars coming in from the back of the jaw. I might be able to find a jawbone for you. I'm going to ask around to see. I think Yuri might have one, if he might let me use it to give you a demonstration on camera. That might be an idea to do at some point. So that's why we don't ever find their teeth falling out. One does find tusks. I've only ever found the tip of a tusk. from a tusk that was probably broken. And I think that it was probably broken because when elephants use their tusk to break branches, they use the same part of the tusk just below the tip of the tusk, and over the years a very deep groove wears through until eventually it snaps off. And I think that's what happened to this particular tusk. But at the same time, I remember quite clearly, if I think back to when I found the tip of that tusk, you could quite clearly see a very distinct star, so almost like, not quite starburst pattern, but almost like a bullet would appear in plate glass, perhaps, where there are concentric rings, or shock rings as it were, from a very, very hard strike. And I think that was probably the deciding thing about breaking that tip off, is that he might have been fighting, and it might have been weakened by the fact that he had been wearing a groove in the tusk from feeding, and maybe during the fighting the tip of the tusk had broken off. Other than that, I've never found elephant teeth other than in the jaws. I often find bovid teeth, especially buffalo, giraffe, because the dentine and the enamel of the tooth doesn't really age. In fact, I've got animal teeth from 2.5 million years ago that are still in situ in the rock, the breccia that they were found in, from a cave. And most of the bones are, I guess, get reduced to powder, but some bones get fossilized, especially the ends of the long bones. But you can be sure that the teeth will almost always remain, and long after the jawbone, the calcium and the bone matter of the jawbone has crumbled and disappeared, those teeth will remain forever. I even found hippo teeth once in the bottom of an estuary up in East Africa, when the tide had eventually broken. It was a lagoon, and every year the lagoon breaks through, and when it does break through, of course, there's this really mushy, muddy bottom to it. And there had once been hippo there, and I found hippo teeth. Speaking of hippo, that was at a place called Raskutani on the Tanzanian coast just south of Dar es Salaam, where they actually have pictures of hippos surfing in the Indian Ocean, swimming in the waves. I guess it'll start cooling down now. The temperature's dropping, clouds are coming in, and so there's a question. Clouds bringing in questions. Okay, that was a little bit broken. I hope I've got the whole answer. Sorry, I'm cleaning my eyes. I'd forget how dirty they get. I just want to confirm with Alex. Ah, good. Ah, that makes sense now. That makes a lot more sense. Thanks, Chris. Chris is asking a question about whether the vegetation allows one to predict what animals might be around. Maybe not so much the vegetation, but the habitat type. I think yes, habitat type is one thing made up of different types of vegetation. So I wouldn't say a particular aspect of the vegetation, but as a whole, on a broader scale, a particular habitat, one might be able to predict what animals utilize that type of habitat, and so those are kind of animals that you're likely to encounter within that habitat. For example, in this thick bush willow forest that we have around us, I'm not talking about up on the top of the slopes where we can see the big trees on the ridge. Those are big marula trees in the much sandier soils, but coming down the slope towards the dam, it's rather thick with bush willow, what we call combretum. It's not habitat that you're going to find a cheetah. You might find cheetah walking through that habitat from one open grassland area to another, and they might have to use that to travel, to traverse. I can see two woolly-necked storks above the pan at the back. Maybe we should, or maybe when we leave. There we go. Two woolly necked storks. Alex saying there was a juvenile fish eagle here too earlier. By the same token, one wouldn't really find zebra and wildebeest in this kind of a habitat, but you would find things like elephant and steenbok and duiker. Impala will move through during the day. The thing is never really easy to predict where anything is going to be, because everything moves around. You can predict that hippos will be in the water during the day and they'll be most likely be out grazing grass at night. That is something one can maybe be accurate on. I can see terrapins climbing out on the other side near the hippo and going back. I wonder what he went out for. Must have gone out to catch something. A little bit too far the way it zoomed out, but it was about there. A lot of these clouds are flattening out. There's still one big one. I don't think you'll be able to. Right at the back. Go ahead. Joan, I think, from England. Getting on to the subject of birds, and the question is, apart from Europe, do birds migrate to Africa from other parts of the world? Well, yes, very much so. We get It's not funny. Really not funny, hippos. I'm talking about migration. It's a serious issue. So apart from, yes, the UK, there are a number of species that come in from Russia, up from the Russian steppes, believe it or not. And of course they're Arctic and Antarctic migrants. I'm trying to think. There are a lot of intra-African migrants that come in from other parts of Africa. Birds that for our winter, they tend to go up towards the equator. They spend their time within a sort of certain degrees of the equator, or even up into North Africa. So birds from mostly in a sort of a north-south migratory route. We don't really get birds that'll come across the Atlantic or across the Indian Ocean very much. They all tend to come down through Africa. From Europe, Russia, Arabia, Asia, well, Central Asia, Middle East type of area, and Europe, all parts of Europe. I think we could drive. Wendy and... Where's Wendy? And where is Strawberry Plains? Hello, Wendy. Strawberry Plains, what a lovely name. Strawberry Plains forever. Wendy wants to know why we're not seeing female lions. She's only seen male lions on the drive, so are females more elusive? No, I wouldn't say they're more elusive. They are certainly haven't been too present. Tennessee, Strawberry Plains, Tennessee. I like a bunch of things that come out of Tennessee, especially the whiskey. Strawberry Plains. There are female groups around, they just haven't been in our broadcast area. We did have 2 females last week, 2 young females from the pride known as the Styx Pride. They were on the the southeastern corner of Djuma Game Reserve just over a week ago. It was last weekend, around about last weekend. It was just after I arrived here. And there are, I'm not too sure how many there are still in the Kahuma Pride. There is just a dynamic at the moment that's going on with the lion here in the Swabi Sand, that there are these big coalitions of males that are constantly taking over from each other, and they seem to take their toll on the prides, and it's not a very healthy situation as in terms of lion reproduction, but it is what it is, the nature of things. There are just a lot more big male coalitions than there have been in the past. Whatever the reason for that may be, I don't know. I guess you've got to look at a much broader picture, because even up in the Timbavati, it's pretty much the same thing. We've got big male coalitions that come in and take over, and sometimes they do a little bit of damage to the local population or the local prides of lion. Damage in terms of mortalities. Now there is an interesting bird. With the hippo, just seen it pop its head out of the water. It looks like it could be a darter or a cormorant, but I'm thinking it's so low in the water. But now I've got to see where it's going to pop itself out. There it goes. No, there. Yeah, it's a darter, and it's darted underwater. Schlangenhalsvogel, if I'm not mistaken. I must just check again. Just behind the hippo on the left now, and underwater again. Yeah. From there it is, just behind the hippo. Bobby, hi Bobby. Spending a long time underwater. Diedrich's cuckoo calling. I need to get a good sighting of this bird. Bobby wants to know, at that fireside chat last night, I spoke about having pets as a child. Do I have now? No, I don't. Not a good idea to have pets in the bush. I'm against it, I have to be honest. Especially taming of wild animals or raising of wild animals, unless you can do it properly and rehabilitate them properly. But it's very hard to teach animals what it is to be an adult of their species. And domestic animals, you have to keep them locked up or in cages, because there's so many things out here that want to eat them. That, as well as just introducing domestic born diseases into their wild cousins, which has happened in the past. And of course I don't really need pets, because I live with animals all around me. I guess I don't know, what was that? Yeah, I will do shortly. Sorry to interrupt, Bobby. I guess the one thing about not having pets is that I miss animal contact, especially with cats. I love cats. I enjoy dogs, and I have gotten close to many dogs in my life, but somehow I just have a much softer spot for cats. Or I guess, no, it's not that I have a softer spot for them. I guess my heart goes out to all animals, but it's that cats understand me. And if you're not a cat lover, you don't understand. You might not understand. You've got to be accepted by a cat, and to understand and to know a cat. I'm boring the hippo. Buffalo weavers are busy. Maybe I should have asked what bird is that. But that's the red-billed buffalo weaver. Okay, I think we should drive because it's become a little overcast and well, not overcast. Pardon?
I just want to get the door.
Okay. We'll close the back door first. But the sun is setting into some sort of grey, hazy sky. It's not going to be as harsh, and I think we should be lucky. See some Egyptian geese too. Perhaps we should drive around. To that part of the world. Don't see those woolly necked storks. Excuse me a moment. Drove 2 meters backwards. That is an interesting find. That is the tail skin of a chameleon. There's the back leg. Piece of the skin off of the back leg. Over here where my thumb is. On my thumb now. It's going to blow away in the wind. Oops, you missed it. That's the underneath of the tail over there, and then here's the chameleon. The thinner part of the tail might have come off in a separate piece, but I like to keep that little bit. I should have kept that piece of leg. I'll put it in one of my books. I've got many, in my reptile book especially. I've got lizard skin and gecko skin. This is a shedded skin, by the way. It's not a real, it's not from a living, well, it's from a living chameleon, but the chameleon is still alive. But I don't think it's here. Hello? Boom. And there goes the lid of the books. Reptiles. The chameleon page. I don't want to open it too much. I can lose some of the skins if they haven't been lost already. Or maybe I better just snakes. They want lizards. Where are the lizards between snakes and lizards or chameleons? I was talking about the plated lizards this morning, and I was saying that the one that I saw on the termite mound I was thinking was probably a rough-scaled plated lizard. There we go. Here, look, here's a picture of a chameleon shedding its skin. This is actually the species of chameleon that it is. And I can even show you, it might even be the exact same chameleon. Look, it's got the same curve to the tail. But the reason why I know it's a chameleon, because I know chameleons and I know reptiles, and the texture of the skin is exactly the same as the texture on this part. This underneath part of the chameleon over there is exactly this part of this piece of skin. And unlike a snake, which tends to shed it sometimes in one whole sheath, chameleon kind of sheds pieces of it here and there. So this is the page that this piece of skin goes in for posterity. And I will always remember you, folks, those of you who are on drive today, especially those whose questions I'm answering. And the fact that it took me an hour to answer Marjo's question because I kept cutting out. My guess is Chameleon was sleeping there maybe overnight, but it wouldn't be a good place during the day. It's a very small little piece of potato bush, and it would be important for the Chameleon to go off into sort of better cover during the day, as well as there wouldn't be that much of a hunting opportunity just in one little bush like that. So it could be anywhere around here. Anywhere at all. At all, at all. I think we might be fine. Dropped up to mile 32. Probably it was as high as maybe 38, 37, 38 earlier. Hello hippos. Hippopotamus. Flush fat. Flush fat. Milk fat. Hippopotam. A Nile horse. Woolly necked storks. If you put salt on their tails, you can catch them, and then you can shave the wool on their necks and make a garment. If you can put salt on their tails. Yep, there's a front moving in. Storms are brewing. Let's move along. Time to cover some ground. We want to go and see if there's going to be a cat that's going to get restless. Maybe we'll even get as far as Zoe's road. Zoe. Road. This is the time now where animals will start getting a bit active. Lovely breeze blowing. I'm being optimistic. Elephants were digging a few days ago. Hello, Mr. Impala. Good day, Squire. the wind playing a bit of a joke with your radar there. And a very nice specimen of a heliotropium next to me. Known as the row of stars. Heliotropium because the curve of the flower follows the sun during the day. Well, it doesn't physically follow it, but if you know what I mean, when it's mostly a sort of an east-west curve, and so the stars each get direct sunlight at certain times of the day. Why that's better than if they were all in a straight line, I don't know. It's the way the plant wants it. Very pretty though. The heliotropes, the sun followers. I'm a lunatrope. A lunaticotrope. Yeah, that too. Follow the moon. We're in last quarter at the moment. We've got a week to new moon, and I have no doubt that new moon might bring us a little bit of weather change, as it usually does. New moons and full moons. And we'll probably have a full moon just after New Year. First week of January we'll be having the next full moon. Love full moons out in the bush. You can drive without lights on them. So bright. Definitely a lot of rain that still needs to fall, because a lot of the pans are dry. The grass, the ground, the grass, everything needs to soak up a lot more than there is. There's a lovely big thunderhead brewing in the east over Kruger. I guess you could say in the northeast. As is the fact that you could probably count them from that big one that we've just been on now. There's the next one that's building up behind it, which is more to the east, the true east, and they're marching along in a northerly direction, and then behind that, even further to the south, there's another big thunderhead building up. And they build up and then they sort of boil over and then collapse. Time-lapse photography on that sort of cloud activity, especially on a day like today, would be phenomenal, because we're getting as the sun is setting, so it's tinging these lovely big mushrooms of cloud with ever-changing color and hues. and soon it's going to be pretty dull down here, but we're going to have beautiful white, orange, pink in these thunderheads. Sorry, dove, little dove. So I think fly into a tree, because I'll turn off the next junction, little dove. Then you can find seed in peace. Okay, I'll go this way, then you can stay there. Okay. Big hello to 8th graders in Jackie's class. I'm wondering if this is Brush College School in Decatur in Illinois. But it would be nice to know what your school is. But 8th graders, talking to me about my bare feet and walking in the bush barefoot. Hi everybody, nice to meet you all. I'd love to take you all for a walk, or maybe you can take me for a walk in Illinois, and then afterwards we can go up to Chicago to the Field Museum. So the question is, walking around barefoot, have I stepped on a scorpion or a snake or something? The answer is yes and no. Yes, I have stepped on a scorpion, one of the worst scorpions that we have in my part of the world. I don't know, I haven't really seen any parabuted scorpions here in the Sabi Sand. Oops. And unfortunately my scorpion torch disappeared amongst other things that disappeared over time. All the devil's thorn, the devil's claw flowers have closed up for the night, but there were some devil's thorn flowers. Need to find ones closer to the road. I stepped on a scorpion one night. It's not a good idea to be barefoot at night. I do wear sandals at night, especially on a night like tonight, warm and humid with storms brewing, and clearly animal activity like dung beetles rolling dung balls. Here we've got one, and further on there's another one. I'm sure you guys in the classroom are going to be tickled pink with the dung beetle rolling the dung ball. It's actually rolling it towards us with his mate sitting, I think it's the male. There's some very small flies, probably even smaller dung beetles flying around, as they can always parasitize the big dung beetles. I haven't stepped on a snake. I've had snakes around my feet. Often if I'm standing somewhere and there's a snake on the ground, I won't move. If it comes through my feet, it comes through my feet. As long as I stand still, nothing's going to happen. I won't be that brave if it was something like a cobra or something that any movement could set it off. Well, now what you're going to do, dung beetle? There's a Land Rover in front of you. Turn left. Well, you're right. I don't know where they're going. I think. Obstacle. And then get on top of the ball just to get our bearings. I've had all sorts of things on my feet, but yeah, I've stepped on a lot of thorns. The one scorpion, that was the worst scorpion I've ever had, because it was the Transvaal thick-tailed scorpion, also known as Parabutus transvaalicus. And the parabuted scorpions are the worst scorpions. in terms of their venom. Okay, they're off the road and they're off the road, so it's safe to drive. We're not going to be driving over any dung beetles. They've been rolling elephant dung, which is just off of the road here. We can actually see, if I go back a little bit, we can see a bunch of them on that elephant dung, and we can see a ball being made, 2 balls actually being made in amongst the dung. Unfortunately, there's a bit of grass in the way, but there you can see how they've been patting the ball down and separating it from the rest of the dung, and they're going to try and lift it out. Here it comes, emerging from the dung heap. This is probably one of the hardest times of the dung beetles ball rolling, because at this stage it can be stolen from it, and it's very difficult to get it actually lifted up. Look at that. It's lifting up this thing many times its own weight. It just keeps falling back in. And you think its mate would help it? No, it just sits on the ball. Take me for a ride. It's trying to move pieces of dung out the way now. Lifting it. Incredible strength of the dung beetle. And we're going back for a second try. And 4-wheel drive. Off you go. I'm tempted to help, and almost go at it. It fell back in. Compacting it a little bit more. Maybe it needs a bit more compacting. Those front arms. I had that dung beetle I was supposed to talk to you about on the ball that time. Now we're getting a little bit of cooperation going on. This is the nuptial ball. These two just got married. This is their honeymoon ball. Other little insects that are taking advantage of it. Quite interestingly, this elephant dung mostly consisting of grasses and twigs, and really chewed up twigs. So easy for them to make up the ball. Sometimes it's a little bit too rough, especially in the dry season. Elephant dung in the dry season is very rough, mostly sticks, if any, mostly sticks. But just as well, because there aren't any dung beetles in the dry season, because they would find it very difficult to roll sticks into a ball. But here we go, trying to get it out again. Some flies, you can see just a little iridescence as their wings reflect the light, or refract the light. So, should I or shouldn't I? What's the vote? Not interfere. No, I won't interfere. They will find their way out, as others have. Let's move on to the next lump of dung. You can see just over here at the bottom of this little area where it's scraped it out. It's actually lifted the dung ball out and pushed some of the dung out of the way. Much better. I've had some interesting things happen around my feet. I think the worst thing is that wearing those shoes is more, not so much about the animals, but about the occasional thorns that I step on and the amount of times I stub my toes. And invariably stubbing my toes on man-made things. Things like somebody cutting a small tree away from the ground, chopping down a small tree and leaving a 2 or 3 inch stub with a very sharp edge on it that I don't see because because the grasses are this long. Some devil's thorn flowers. Some kudu crossing the road as well. That's a lovely view actually, if we can just almost like you're driving down the road at high speed. And there's kudu. One of my favorite roads here, I think, and a game drive vehicle. That's what it looks like when you're on safari. It's actually quite a nice view. Anyways, what I want to do is I want to test another flower for the day. Since we had a devil's claw earlier, we need to find one facing. Maybe I'm going to have to do it this way because of the angle of the flowers. They're facing south. Not always, but these ones are. Elephants have been eating a lot of devil's thorn. Excuse me, I'll be back in a second. Car's not there anymore. I was feeling for thorns. They haven't started growing yet. I just want to get level again and back onto the road. And then I can show you something. This is bush soap or bush shampoo. And I've used it before, washing in the river when I was still in my 20s. It feels like any normal plant, any normal leaf when it is dry. But just add water. It's going to get mushy, so I'm going to need that little rag that you had. Actually, if you keep that still. I won't move my hand much. There we go. Put that underneath because it's going to be a little messy. Looks like my dishcloth from home. Add a little bit of water and we rub it together a little bit and we're starting to get soap. Now, can you hear that? It looks yucky. It's very slimy. But it's very, very healthy, and it makes a lovely shampoo. Of course, you've got to wash all the leaves out of your hair again. I hope you can get an idea of how soapy this is. It's not so much that it lathers, but my hands are now as slippery as if I've had a bar of soap in my hands underwater for 10 minutes. But yes, it's a very it's slimy. Devil's thorn also makes good soap and pretty flowers and sticky hands. Normally you have a water source that you can wash off, but that'll be fine. It's like a moisturizer. Look how clean my hands are. Not even normal soap makes them so clean. Should take some for my feet. Now what did I do with the lid? Ah, there it is. Onward ho! It didn't sound good. Too good. Look at that big thunderstorm brewing. That's like the other day when we had a big storm brewing and we had to race home. The ball and the heels of my feet are pretty thick. They're like an elephant. But especially things like acacia thorns and some of the spines that are very spiny. very hard spines of things like the sickle bush and the spike thorn. And it's getting to be where it's soon going to be difficult to walk in places like little grassland areas like this because of things like the devil's thorn. Devil's claw is not too bad because it's not a thorn on the ground, it will hook on your clothes if anything. But there are two thorns that would be rather prolific in an area like this. One of them is a plant known as Tribulus terrestris. It has a thorn with 3 spines on it. Very woody, very, very hard. So no matter which way it lands, there's always a spine sticking up. And they can be painful. Of course, the devil's thorn was another one. And there's another one that comes from somewhere else. I think it's probably also a South American import, called paper thorn. They're the smallest and finest. I mean, paper thorn is a very appropriate name because each thorn is as thin as a sheet of paper. And they just have these 2 little spikes, but they grow, the seed itself has these 2 little spikes with very, very sharp thorns on them. They're very, very small and almost wafer thin and very brittle, but it's not the actual seed part, the brittle part that one has to worry about. It's the very, very sharp part. And because it is such a prolific seeder, that there are just beds of paper thorn that you can't take one step onto some paper thorn without feeling agony. There are no poisons or alkaloids or anything in the thorns. It's just they're so tiny. They hit the nerve. They just somehow hit the nerve just right or wrong, whichever way you want to put it. Snakes mostly only bite when you handle them. There are odd cases of people being bitten by snakes but they're standing on them. It does happen. It's not impossible. But I'd say that the majority of snake bites that hospitals have to deal with in today's day and age are a result of people handling snakes wrong and handling them in the wrong way. Interesting, those 2 little birds that I just saw, if they would settle down, they are. One settling in that terminalia and the other one is also, but they're at the back and off they go. And I'll tell you what they were. They were African scimitar bulls. Formerly known as scimitar bull woodwhippoos. I was bitten by a venomous snake because I handled it wrong, and I couldn't afford to be bitten by a venomous snake now, not because I was bitten by one before, just that things have changed in my life now, that I probably would be taking a very, very big chance if I had to handle one. So if I do have to handle a venomous snake now, I will handle it with proper equipment, snake sticks, proper snake sticks. Sometimes have to remove snakes from houses, from people's houses, because they don't like them in there. I don't mind snakes in my house. I've had all sorts of snakes in my house, some that come back regularly looking for the geckos that live there. Most of the time they're non-venomous snakes, but if they are venomous, I'll devise a means of catching them that I don't have to risk being bitten, and I think that's the only way to go. There's no need to be all macho about it. A venomous snake is a venomous snake. If you're handling it, it's stressing an animal out, and it's going to try and use its defense mechanism. Snakes, of course, are very similar to dogs. You get different species of snakes have different temperaments. some snakes are very mild-tempered, and I'm not talking venomous snakes. Well, I suppose all snakes, but in terms of handling snakes, even non-venomous snakes or harmless snakes, like supposedly harmless, but more harm can come to them by handling them, because there are some snakes that are irascible. Some snakes are just bad-tempered to begin with, and as soon as you try and pick them up, they'll try and bite, and unfortunately the human reaction is to pull away. And snakes have got very, very, very fine teeth, and by pulling away when it's already latched onto your skin, it's just going to rip all of those teeth. Now, I'm not too sure how snakes' dental things work, but I'm sure that they don't grow new ones, not like crocodiles. Go down the road. Somebody else was there. We'll go down another road. Maybe we'll do Battalier Road. Determined not to let it be a Monday, and it's been a very fun day today. I found a spider that I've never seen before. That looks like leopard dung, very dry leopard dung. Yep, that's what it looks like to me. See if there's any sign of this cat. There's been a lot of cars here today. No, I'm not seeing anything. Cars must have driven over its tracks. Oops, sorry. Dropped the clutch a little bit. There are tracks going south. Big male leopard. Maybe this is a Mvula. I'm just going back to that leopard dung because the track looked. The dung I wasn't too sure because it's not very dry, but it's very hard. Leopard and lion dung, I suppose, and wild dog, cheetah, just after they've been eating a kill, when they've just killed, their first dung after eating is very dark because of all the blood, because invariably when they first start eating on a carcass, they're eating mostly only meat. They go for the, oops, stay on the road, Mark. Just try to avoid the leopard track. I'm now probably driven over. I'm just going to go and poke it with a stick. I know I shouldn't poke things with a stick, but I'm not expecting anything to jump out at me. I want to test its consistency, but also it's... Oh, that's why I haven't heard anything. Has Alex said anything in the last 20 minutes?
Maybe one or two questions.
Ease of egress and access, ingress and egress. I'll take this out because it's easier to put that in than to fiddle with my ear. Once this thing's in my ear, it should stay there, because otherwise I've got to fiddle with it all the time. Like now, I've touched it. This is what Alex whispers in my ear with. But I was saying that, by the way, the dung, it's dry. It was maybe early this morning. The tracks that are here heading south. This cat's been sleeping somewhere during the day, and going to probably start moving this evening, which means that tomorrow morning, anywhere in this immediate area, there might be some fresh tracks. But I was saying that at the start of a kill, when they first start eating on a kill, the dung is very wet, very black, very smelly, because there's a lot of blood, because that is where they start on the carcass. And as they, especially leopard, well, no, lion too, it's not especially leopard, and not so much cheetah perhaps. Towards the end of the kill, they're chewing on gristle, they're eating bone, and they're mostly sort of eating the rest of the skin. So the composition of the dung then is mostly bits of bone and hair, and it becomes very spongy almost with all the hair that is in it. So that is what that is now, is dung from the end of a carcass. One of the reasons why maybe this elephant, no, it's not an elephant, it's a leopard. One of the reasons why this leopard hasn't been moving around, why we haven't found tracks in the last couple of days, is because he's probably been stashed somewhere with this kill, and this movement now indicates, excuse the pun, indicates that he's finished with that and he's now on his way to a different area. I thought I saw something moving. So, I think I might have missed one or two questions, having not had my ears plugged into the machine. Alex, I think I've missed a couple of the last questions. The last one I got was from Jackie's class. Okay, copies. It's Alex back a bit. There's so much coming in on Twitter that it's hard to scroll back if I don't get something. Stuff coming in all the time. There'll be 100 new tweets every time you refresh it, every couple of minutes. I'm sure that the number of you have sent in questions and we haven't got around to them. I just hope you're persistent. Why do I go barefooted if there's so many dangers in the bush? From Shelley. No, there are not that many dangers. Sherry, not Shelley. Sherry. Are you a medium cream or a full cream? They're not that many. When I talk about things, it might sound like it's pretty bad, but it's not. I go barefoot because I love the feel of the earth underneath my feet, the different textures of planet Earth, the energy of planet Earth, the energy of the universe and nature that I live in, the vibration of everything around me. I like to be connected, centered. I like to be, I am a part of it. I don't mind a little thorn every now and then. I try to be careful. I look to see if there's snakes or scorpions at night. I need to get myself a new scorpion torch, because that helps a lot. Ultraviolet light makes scorpions iridescent, almost like disco colors. We used to put that special paint on the walls of our parents' garages when we had home discos in the 70s, listening to things like Boston and Slade and Rolling Stones and the Beatles. And then we put a black light on, and the walls would brighten up in the most beautiful colors under ultraviolet light. Well, scorpions do the same thing. They don't even need the paint. Ow. Okay, now I need to know who was that, and repeat the hospital, please. University Hospital in Pennsylvania came to a standstill because of the dung beetle. I like that. Stay with it. Let's see what else we can find that will interest you. I hope so. I'm looking, I'm driving as many roads as I can. The cooler temperatures mean that we aren't cutting out, my sound isn't cutting out anymore. And well, we're broadcasting from the middle of Africa. You know, this is live. This is hello everybody at the hospital, Pennsylvania University Hospital. Tell me, do you have a dialysis unit? Do you have a transplant unit? Please give my best to all your transplant patients. Anybody out there, from Heather in Alaska to Raisa in Finland, all the way down to John in Cape Town. Who else is in Cape? Anybody remotely associated with or connected to things like dialysis or transplants, not necessarily kidney. I guess I'm mostly referring to kidney. This is what you can do after a kidney transplant. You can drive a Land Rover in the middle of the African bushveld. I've even been doing walking safaris in the biggest game reserves in Africa, in Kenya and Tanzania. And I remember many years ago, many years ago, there's a bustard and a plum, no, it's not a plum coloured star. I think that's a buff crested bustard. I don't want to make it run or fly, but it is going to cross the road shortly, and I want to be there too. Okay. But I remember when I was facing dialysis, I was sitting, actually I guess you could call it, I wasn't even end-stage renal disease. I was still on my way there. And I went to visit my nephrologist, and I was sitting in the waiting room, and there was a chap who was one patient ahead of me, and as with many doctors, appointments run into each other, can't be helped, especially doctors who take care of their patients very well, can't help but run over their time limit, and so patients get sort of pushed back a bit. I found that you can find a doctor where your appointment is at 11 and you only get to see him at 11:30. It's a doctor who cares about their patients. But anyways, Dr. Margolius, just before this chap went in to see him, he was telling, we were chatting about our conditions. I was where he had been, and he was telling me how wonderful it was having had a transplant, and how everything was just so new to him. All of a sudden, there was just so much possibility in life. And at the time, I was deeply depressed. I was staying in the city because I couldn't work in the bush at the time, and I felt it very difficult. I found it very difficult to although he lifted my spirits, I found it very difficult to envisage a time when I would have to go through a transplant, and most importantly, what would happen afterwards. Anyway, to cut a long story short, almost 11 and a half years ago, I did have my transplant. I went into renal failure, had my transplant, and within 8 months I was up in Kenya doing what I love to do, and since then I've done some incredible things. And so I'm in my 12th year, and I want to just help anybody who is facing this problem, anybody who is not a problem, this hurdle in life, anyone who is very unsure of what their future is going to be like. I think just to have faith that one day that phone call will come and that will be a life-changing thing for you. Just trying to think, Heather, it must be about 3 years by now, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe even 4 years since Heather's transplant. So a big shout out to, in particular, hospital in Pennsylvania that's been watching the drives. To Heather, Gloria, who is also, Gloria's not going through a transplant, but one of our Zoomies is, I found something very special. It must be a sign. Not much. I suppose if I had to walk around in a bigger area, switch the lights off somehow, put the lights on. Feathers from different birds. This is the feather dropped by the killer. This is the killer's feather, and this is the victim's feather. Bunch of feathers. This was a bustard, this was an eagle. Oh, that make a noise. A lot of noise. I need to find a place for it. I always wear a feather in my Land Rover, like a feather in my cap. Maybe one of the upper wing or secondaries. Yeah, maybe a secondary. This is from possibly a buff-crested bustard. These feathers have been plucked from a bird. I can feel where there's been saliva and things on it. This is another perfect example of a feather that has been plucked by an eagle. It's broken. The shaft of the feather is broken. You can see how an eagle must have grabbed it by its beak and snapped the shaft of the feather as it was pulled out of the bird. And there's a whole cluster of feathers from the breast of the bustard. So I would imagine that, I know this is an African hawk eagle. It's a feather that's a little bit damaged on the edges, and that's probably because of the hawk eagle diving into, this is a primary, by the way. This is probably one of the leading primaries, that if it's on, and it's from the right wing, but sort of towards the front of the wing, and this is a feather that takes the weight of the wing. It's also a feather that helps with lift and flying, well, a flight feather in other words. But it's a little bit damaged probably from striking birds in long grasses and in bushes and things, the tips of feathers. So it's a feather that was ejected by the body of the eagle, much as like we lose our hair. And it must have fallen out when this eagle killed this bustard. Bit nice to see if I could find other remnants around here, but it's getting a bit late. Want to get closer to the Ari Dam. Could have plucked it a little bit and then flown off with it, or sometimes if it's prey that's very heavy, they'll actually walk it. They'll take one talon and they'll hold their prey in one talon, and they'll walk and then drag it, and then walk and drag it, and they would possibly drag it either into the shade somewhere, depending on what time of the day they struck at it, or could have taken it up into a low tree to feed on. Could have fed on some of it to lighten the carcass and then flown away with it. Maybe they're chicks. There's an African hawk eagle's nest somewhere on the way to Buffelshoek Dam. I must have a look to see if the same nest is still used. But I have a resident pair of African hawk eagles that live at home, and I'm very familiar with them because on most mornings the guinea fowl at my house wake me up because the hawk eagles are terrorizing them. Hawk eagles are fantastic hunters. They're bird hunters, and they all hunt, not all, but they hunt as a pair. They're a kind of eagle that are monogamous, and each member of the pair has a specific function in the hunt. One of the eagles will fly a circle in thermals just above the tree line and make itself quite visible. You'll find squirrels and the go-away birds, the grey go-away bird or the grey lory, they shout at them. The francolins freak out and dive for cover. The guinea fowl rattle. The guinea fowl complain bitterly. But the male, usually I guess the male, she's stronger, she's bigger and stronger. I don't know if there is a tactic to change when it comes to hunting, that one does one thing all the time. But what happens is you have one always visible, and the other bird will come in below the tree line, below the tree canopy, or fairly low down where it can't be seen. And while the one mate is distracting the prey, the other one will come in and strike. And there are a number of eagle pairs that do that. Most eagles, I think, however, most eagles are more solitary in their hunting strategies. But I know the black eagle and the African hawk eagle are two eagles that do hunt as a pair, as a team. Beautiful birds, African hawk eagles. I love them. And the pair that I have at home are actually quite accustomed to me, especially when I'm walking around. They're not too fond of vehicles if they're in a tree close to a road. But they know that when I'm on foot, they're not in much of danger, because I have only love for them. Got a couple of other small raptors that live around me that I know very well, and they seem to accept me. There's a juvenile spotted eagle owl that comes and sits in the around the fireplace, and I know it's there because the hornbills and the lories and the waxbills complain a lot. And then there's also the little pearl spotted owlet, a youngster, not a sub-adult I'd say, probably a youngster from last year, that sits above my Land Rover on a lot of days, and was still there the day that I left him looking after the house. The resident children in my world. And an elephant that came to eat most of my aloes just before I left home. Hopefully he's left them alone while I'm away. At least when I'm there and he's there in the night time eating my aloes, I can open my door, I'll go outside and I just greet him and he moves off. Of course, I like to think that when I'm greeting them that the intent is is there more than the words, because I don't expect an elephant to understand my language, but most certainly the intent, and sometimes you just have to open your mouth and elephants become shy, because as a human, he doesn't really want to wait around and see what I'm going to do. Us humans are somewhat inconsistently behaved when it comes to elephants, so they just don't know where we're coming from. Even if they know me, they're still wary of me. Some are, some aren't. Depends on how often I get to see them, or how often they come to my house, or how often I encounter them in my Land Rover. So an eagle feather for Clancy and the Crow Nation, where my beaded headband comes from. May this feather forever feel the freedom of wind by being on the dashboard in my Land Rover. And no, it's not illegal. When I'm stopped by the police, they're more interested in my indicator lights and my brake lights than anything else. Not the feathers on my dashboard. Hello, grey lurry go away bird. I've just been talking about... I didn't mean go away. It went away. I didn't mean that.
I'll just plug in.
Oh, I'm not plugged in again. Okay, I guess I'm going to have to find another system. It's because I'm talking so much. Okay, I'm plugged in. Okay, I'm plugged in. Humidity. My own electromagnetic field interfering with that of the vehicle. Valerie. Hello, Valerie. In Pennsylvania. Interesting question, as they always are. Question is, do animals get sick from eating poisonous plants, or do they know to avoid them? Like, I need to avoid branches. They tend to know to avoid them, but it's possible that animals can inadvertently eat something. I remember when I was in California, we were horse riding, and there's a plant, is it just Arathusa, or there was a plant that they had to make sure the horses wouldn't pick, because it numbs their lips, it causes neurological disorder in their faces, nerve damage. I'm trying to think what that plant would have been. But out here there's probably, I think, as a result of the process of nurturing their young, herbivores tend to assist the young in knowing what it is they eat. Now there's another theory that I have, and that is that during pregnancy the female is eating a lot of the vegetation, especially now this time of the year. The vegetation she eats is providing nutrients, or nutrition rather, to the child growing in her belly. And whatever she eats must have different levels of nutrients, and different types of nutrients, and different types of nutrients that the young obviously absorbs. And when it is born, it starts drinking milk that is invariably tainted. Tainted is not the right word. Flavored, maybe. Flavored by the different plants that mom eats. And so when it starts getting weaned, in fact already these youngsters that we see now, the Impala lambs, they will be feeding very close to mom, and they will be feeding on exactly what mom wants. But when they're drinking milk that is tainted or flavored by the plants that mom eats, so that when, ow, oh, that hit. when they looking for that one blade of grass amongst that smell foreign, they're still able to eat one blade of grass. And of course their tongue is also going to help. I guess it happened, and I guess it's I can't say for sure whether I've found it before carcasses, or not carcasses, but dead animals, because they didn't appear to be struggling. Where I guess it's possible that something might have happened in that line. But obviously, I think if we look at the survival rate of animals, apart from their predators, if you look at all of those, I think it's pretty high. That is an indicator that there are any poisonous or that can be that are potentially lethal for animals to eat, then they would probably have a higher mortality rate from natural causes, and we would be finding more animals that have passed on. I don't think nature really would allow that to happen. I think it's vital that animals have an instinctive instinctive knowledge of get from their mother. The whole reason why mammals are mammals, the whole nurturing thing is vital to their survival. And during that nurturing, as I say, teaching youngsters what they should and shouldn't go for. Just going to come along the dam. Looks like there were elephants there today. Water thickney calling, very high-pitched whistle. Coming out of here. Little girl. What was that noise? Branch. And an elephant. Leave this for get ready for when it's a little bit darker. Little boy is still with the herd. He's going to be moved out. Actually a few. Looks like a bachelor group here. Strange dynamic here. Females with their lambs and a couple of their boys from last year, with maybe even their boys from the previous year. A bit early to really split up, but there has been some behavior in some herds where the young boys are being pushed out already. Obviously not in this herd. So my favorite tree in the Djuma area, because there are no baobabs here, maybe the tree wisteria or jackalberry. And then we can talk about individual jackalberries. There's that one big beautiful jackalberry at Twin Dam, and then there's that beautiful jackalberry on Gari. What's a Gari Cutline, I think. If I remember. Some of the names I can't remember. This is in Vubu, if I remember. And then there's a new road that's been cut between here and Gallagher, I believe. You're going to see, I drove that before there was even a road there, following Mission and Duna. I'm so proud of myself when I actually emerged this side. With 2 punctures, nonetheless. Aiden and Peter managed to do a whole month without a puncture, and I'll come here and one drive I get a puncture. My first drive. I think it was my first. There are no cassiers here, so, or very few. No big ones. Got to be in the Djuma area. Obviously the sausage tree, the one sausage tree that I know of on this property other than that which is in the garden of the lodge. But the sausage tree is one of my favorite trees on Djuma. And the leadwood. The leadwood tree is another favorite tree. Too early for life?
No, it's fine.
Never too early for life. That's a very new road. You can see that. Anyway, there used to be tracks here that we follow. I remember Tara and I coming up here looking for in Duna when we used to have him just on the other side. It was just up this embankment, a little bit to the left, up another drainage line is where our camp used to be. And in Duna, which are Karula's cubs, used to come and hide out there. Used to be here for them. And it was always quite exciting because there wasn't a road here, but we used to make it the jigger in here, and it was just perfect because the jigger is a little bit smaller than the big game drive vehicles that kind of battled to come in here. And now there's this new road. It's recently been graded again, so it's a little bit more distinct. I think Scott was here the other day. It was just sort of a little 2-track, barely noticeable. But slowly but surely it's going to revert to a better surface. And it's really beautiful though, because what is that, a human? No, a big water buck. I thought it was somebody standing with his hands on his hips, but he's moved. Very big water buck bull. Might be a bit too dark in there too. Oh wait, maybe the road goes through there, because this is about the furthest I would ever get off-road, except for that one time when I went from Gallagher shortcut through to that corner of the dam. This is all new to me. There never used to be a road here. I mean, you can see it's a fairly new road. I used to come over here after game, but there's the water buck. The lights that you're going to see through the bushes, that is Gallagher Camp, which used to be where we used to stay, across that drainage line. And maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm not supposed to be here. No, there's a road. Hello, big boy. magnificent animal. Big waterbuck bull. Time to leave him be. I don't like to disturb diurnal animals. It's a lot lighter for you than it really is because the camera is able to open up its iris better than we can open up our pupils. Oops. Oh, what was that? A tree. Natalie in California. Hello, Natalie. Welcome to our drive. Perhaps the last question for today is Natalie's question: how did the jackalberry get its name? I guess because jackals eat the fruit, but there's so many other things that eat the fruit. Civets love eating the fruits, but it's not called a civet berry. I don't know. Naturally, I'll have to look up why the jackalberry is called the jackalberry. It is an ebony. It belongs to the ebony family. And it does have a lovely dark wood. Almost purplish. Mosquitoes biting. I think I've had a few mosquitoes biting this evening. Unless there's sand fleas or something when I was walking on the sand earlier. Another thing I'd like to say about being barefoot is that shoes are just, my feet have changed. My feet have changed shape so much in the last few years as a result of a form of, well, that's just they have, and because of that I find shoes extremely uncomfortable to such an extent that I don't own any shoes. I have a pair of boots that I use for bushwalks when I'm walking in when I'm walking with clients, because if I'm doing a guided walk I can't exactly carry a rifle and go barefoot. And I don't do much of that anymore anyway, so I don't really wear my boots that much anymore either. I was rushing around the day that I came here to WildEarth 10 days ago. I was rushing around Hoedspruit, my local little town, trying to find a pair of shoes because I thought I would need them. But I am who I am, and it's just, I would be so uncomfortable driving around with the hot car. I mean, this floorboard and firewall of this edge, excuse me, gets extremely hot. And although my feet are cooking, I'd rather have them breathing than being closed in sweaty shoes. Most shoes these days are for just normal feet. My feet are not normal, they're very broad. And the molded shoes that you get today are not like the old stitch-on soles. Somehow, yes, they hug the feet and they give better support, but unfortunately I just don't really do much of that. So I wear sandals at night, and most people in Africa wear the likes of flip-flops, or what do they call them elsewhere? Hyena tracks. Flip-flops, sandals, those things where you put your toe, put the thing through your toe to hold them on. Flip-flops, floppies, flip-flop. Different countries have different names. Anyways, I just can't bear to have something between my toes. It's just I'm not comfortable like that. But anybody who wears those is still susceptible to things like snakes and scorpions. So just because you've got something under the sole of your feet doesn't mean that you're well protected. But I don't know. I guess I'm trying to justify my bare feet. I don't really. Oh. Look at this. This is like the other night when we were racing home to get away from the storm, and then it blew itself around us, and 1 minute we were racing away from it and the next minute we were driving straight into it. So this looks like it might bring something tonight. A bit too windy. Let's go and see. You know, this time of the evening when things are likely to come out onto the open area here called quarantine, possible that hyenas should be here. See if I can pick up any eyes before I say goodbye. Some impala with their babies. Looks like wildebeest in the background. She's looking over this way. She's looking somewhere here. If there is anything here. Looks like very heavy rain to the west already. Just off towards, I suppose, Acorn Hook. Very heavy rain falling there. Come on, white-tailed mongoose maybe. Leopard, maybe hyena, maybe something, maybe something tomorrow. But I think the heat's going to be broken tonight. Do stay tuned to the Wild Earth live cams. We do have some interesting things happening. Maybe you'll see a light show with a bit of lightning. I think there's some meteor showers that are supposed to be happening at the moment, but with cloud I don't think we'll get to see them. The witch, yeah, so not much other than the impala, and I'm sure the wildebeest were there too, and they're sitting down in the open area for the evening. It's much safer for them because they can see danger, and also with this kind of wind it's not as noisy as in thick bush, so it's easier for them. My name is Mark. Djuma has been on camera. Thank you, Alex, in Final Control, for putting questions through. Thank you everyone for your patience today. We have had a few ups and downs, and it's been great that you've been with us throughout, those of you who are. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock Central African time, our time, and I hope we'll be able to bring you some wonderful things then too. From all of us here at Wild Earth, goodbye. #Safari Live. Bye.